Alright, so I want to apologize for the kind of crap lighting in here tonight. I am recording this at night, and when I record in this room I rely a lot on natural light, and since there's no natural light, the lighting is kind of meh. Anyway, welcome back to another review of Yu-Gi-Oh! This week on Yu-Gi-Oh! We see the return of Hanasaku, who we haven't seen since the 3rd chapter of the manga, if I'm not mistaken. If you recall, he's that other kid who was roped into selling tickets for that guy who thought he could sing but couldn't. He's kind of Yugi light. Anyway, this is a double chapter focusing on Hanasaku, something that I bet none of you ever expected would happen. It opens up with a very different art style, telling the story of a character who very much resembles an American-style comic book superhero character. It turns out that Yugi and his friends are reading a comic featuring the character of Zombire, who's kind of a Batman-Spawn hybrid. This is Hanasaku's favorite character. He gets really passionate about Zombire and then invites the others over to see his collection of Zombire merchandise. And it's pretty impressive, I gotta say. And I'm one to talk. The kid is a Zombire super fan, and we learn why very, very soon. It turns out that these older male and female clones of Hanasaku spoil him with Zombire-themed gifts. Oh, no, wait, those are supposed to be his parents. Sorry, I got a little confused there for a second. Point is, his dad travels a lot, and he isn't around a lot. So he buys Hanasaku Zombire-themed gifts for America to make up for that. This time he comes bearing a Zombire mask, which is the last thing that Hanasaku needs to put together his Zombire cosplay. While he goes to change into it, Yugi and the others get a closer look at Hanasaku's collection, and Shinochi even opens up one of the soft vinyl model kits that Hanasaku was trying to keep in package. But Hanasaku's a good enough guy that he doesn't get mad at him for it, and the main characters leave having had a good time. This is when Hanasaku's dad approaches them and asks them to please remain friends with his son. Apparently Hanasaku doesn't make friends very easily, and his dad kind of blames himself for that, I guess, since he isn't around enough. He feels guilty for not being there for his son, so he sees every deficiency in his son's life as being his fault. He talks about how Hanasaku is a fragile kid, but Shinochi flat out says that Hanasaku isn't as weak as his dad thinks he is, which spurs his dad to flash back to when Hanasaku was sick in the hospital at some indeterminate point in the past. You can kind of see a picture being formed here. Hanasaku got sick and his dad wasn't around for him because he had to travel to America so much. This is when he brought him the first Zombire stuff that he ever bought for him to try to make him feel better. He saw his son perk up when he got the gift, and so ever since then he's been buying him more gifts to try to make his life better in the best way that he knows how, since he isn't there enough to help his son in a more conventional way. He's effectively trying to buy his son happiness, and while obviously that's not the way he should be going about it, his heart is in the right place. And he's not entirely wrong about Hanasaku being a frail kid. He's small, he's not very athletic, but just because he's physically weak, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have any strengths at all. And his dad just doesn't know him well enough to know what those strengths might be. Hanasaku, in his full Zombire cosplay, decides he wants to go run around and pretend to be his hero for a while out on the street. And while this is a monumentally stupid idea, I can kind of see the appeal as he's doing it, because it does make him feel strong. It makes him feel like he could be this person, this character that he looks up to. However, while he's out and about, he sees two thuggish guys, beating up a third guy, and he decides, very recklessly, to try to step in and stop them. The fact that he's wearing the full superhero cosplay gives him confidence that he can make a difference in this situation where just he can't. Put frankly, he can't. But he manages to drive the guys off anyway, and we jump cut to a reveal that that only happened because his dad met the guys as he was following Hanasaku around and paid them to put on this little show for his son. He thinks that boosting his son's confidence is a good thing, which it is, but he believes it's a good thing regardless of the method that he uses, and that just isn't the case. He pays these guys quite well, and so because these are actual thugs, they immediately put together a plan to get another payday out of this guy. They learn where Hanasaku goes to school, and they head there to try to figure out what he actually looks like. They end up bumping into Yugi because, of course they do. This is the little Yugi we're talking about, and he's a magnet for these kinds of people. And they try to harass him into telling them who Hanasaku is. Weirdly enough, though, he doesn't get hit by any of them, which I kind of expected him to. It kind of throws a wrench into my theory that the little Yugi is contractually obligated to be punched at every opportunity. He is saved by, of all people, Hanasaku. He's still riding high on that confidence boost that he got the previous night, and so he jumps in between Yugi and the thugs, and they recognize his voice, and since they only wanted to know what he looked like, they back off. But now they're able to follow him home. They bait him with a note claiming that they've kidnapped Yugi, leading him back to where they're hiding out. He, of course, puts on the Zombire costume and goes after them. But, of course, these guys aren't playing anymore. They know they're going to be able to handle this one kid, so in the meantime, they call his dad and set up a ransom. They threaten to beat him to death unless they get paid the rough equivalent of $4,100. Fortunately for Hanasaku, because his dad can't afford that right now, Hanasaku has actually gotten Yugi into the whole Zombire thing, and he's stayed up late putting together one of those soft vinyl model kits. But he doesn't have any paint, so he goes to Hanasaku's house to borrow some. And because, as we've already established, there aren't any police officers in this world, just motorcycle riding card game cops, Hanasaku's dad has absolutely no idea what to do, because He can't call anybody. But Yugi sees the note and realizes that Hanasaki got himself into this situation for Yugi's benefit. This brings the other Yugi out, off screen, so unfortunately we don't get a badass transformation panel. But this does mean that the other Yugi goes with Hanasaki's dad to confront the guys and ends up putting them through a bit of a gauntlet. He grabs some of the spray paint they were using to tag the walls and creates a maze using one of their discarded cigarettes as a fuse. Gets them to chase him around all throughout the pattern, waits for it to set on fire, and then watches them run around as their pants burn. We get to see a little bit of a return to form for the other Yugi, a little bit of his sadistic side, but because he did all of this in their hideout, which was by water, they are all able to jump into the water and put themselves out, and so nobody dies this time. And to Hanasaki's credit, even though he didn't end up having to do anything, when he realized that Yugi was fighting his battle for him, he had the courage to go back and see if he could help. It ends with Hanasaki's dad having gotten a hard lesson regarding how he should be trying to help his son, and the other Yugi assuring Hanasaki that he can be a hero, but it is implied that this might not be the best way to go about it. It's weird that this is a two-part chapter. It's also weird that this has actually made a really big impact on the fandom that is aware of the manga. These chapters are actually pretty popular. So popular, in fact, that a Zombire card actually made its way into the OCG and TCG. That is, the Japanese and American versions of the card game, respectively. Here it's pronounced Zombira, and he gets the suffix the dark, but it is intended to be the same character. And back in the day, he was actually a pretty good monster. His powers are in line with the Zombire character, and his high attack points and low level meant that he could beat down most other monsters that existed in the game at the time. I actually remember playing him for a while. And I say it's weird because I actually am not a huge fan of these chapters. I like the end with the other Yugi. I like to see that sadistic side of him every once in a while. But for the most part, these just don't make much of an impact on me. I think the story with Hanasaki's dad is interesting, the way he's trying to fill the role that he isn't able to fill himself with this character that is strong enough to inspire his son in his place. But that's really it, and it didn't really need 2 chapters to tell that story. There are some good visuals here. Kazuki Takahashi proves that he can draw a pretty convincing American-style comic book, which is pretty neat. But all in all, Hanasaki himself just doesn't make much impact on me. He feels like the little Yugi, just without the interesting friends, interesting personality, or magical powers. Maybe that's the point. Maybe he's supposed to be a more normal version of the other Yugi that Takahashi can tell stories about that he couldn't tell about Yugi, I guess. I don't know. The fact of the matter is, the character just doesn't do it for me, and so his stories don't really do it for me either. I don't think we ever see him again. I could be wrong, I guess. It's been a while since I've read this manga, but if I'm not mistaken, this is the last time that we see Hanasaki. I guess it was a pretty cool way for his character to go out, but because these chapters don't really make much of an impact on me, I am left wondering what we could have gotten instead. All of that said though, guys, if you have read this chapter of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga, what did you think of it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.